Spoiler alert, spoiler alert. All right, James Reid, how are you today?
All right, I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm so excited about, I want to say book three, because that would be launching tomorrow once this video is posted. So looking forward to book three, which means that book two is on my mind. I have had such a great time reading book two, and it's just been fabulous. So speaking of, book two is Lady Shadow's Ire, which is a very appropriate title. Uh, she is an interesting character that we will talk about in a minute. But yes, Lady Shadow's Ire, book two of the Shadow of the Dragon series. I'm very excited to have everyone read this book and just talk about it more. There's just so much conversation that can happen. One thing I know you like from the last video, tell me about Thaf and Dawa. Just anything you want to tell me about them. I love them.
So Dow and Thaf are they're my shrub characters. So they are a male and female shrub. They're grafted together, which is their form of marriage. So Dow is the female, and she's the larger of the two, and Thaf is sort of entwined through her. And so his head just sits on her shoulder, and they're kind of like one creature, but with like two brains, basically. Though Dow has control over the body, and Thoth has the magic. So that's kind of how their race works.
I think that
Uh,
when I try to explain the shrub men, the shrub people to other people, um, I finally today I just told somebody it reminds me of Groot, like a grown-up Groot. If you need a reference, but I know they're definitely different than that, like much
they're
more
more
advanced.
they're viney, not trees. But yeah,
Okay, yeah,
and yeah, they definitely have. Well, Groot's intelligent. They're not limited to just three words.
right. Oh, there's so much more to them. I was like trying to get the visual, and I was trying to tell someone, which thankfully there is a picture of them on the front of book two. Um, One thing I didn't realize until later was how Thoth is all like completely, except for his head, everything is intertwined, right?
Doesn't seem like he used to have a normal body, although he would have stood half her height, so he'd be the height of like a child at full maturity, whereas she's the height of like a grown man. So
Right.
yeah, but what it does is it strengthens her core and allows her to have more of her vines growing out into her limbs, which in turn makes her stronger. So they sort of stronger together than they are apart is sort of the metaphor that's involved
Yes.
in in the whole shrubs, and that gets into the whole issues that's happened in their homeland with why they're sort of exiles and rebels, because there is a shrub who's called the Prince of Questions, which is the title he sort of adopted, and he asked the question, why do male shrubs have to be subservient to the females? And so he, with the backing of our villains, the apostasy, had upturned his whole entire society and caused a lot of problems with that
Right.
question. Um,
Questioner.
mhm. Yeah, and yeah, he founded the Questioners, which are a group of fanatic males
Like,
that
I
serve
do
them.
not want to be grafted to a female for the rest of my life. That is not how my life
Right.
is going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I finished reading book two, and it's a cliffhanger, literally.
Yes.
And
Well, a cliff falling, or
kept
because
falling, or yeah.
because the characters fell off the cliff.
There is no hanging. There it's just we just fall. Yeah. What a good ending for a book. I mean, how powerful is that, right?
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It was important to show sort of Vonnie's resolve, and she'd been talking the talk, and she kept her word
yes. I
about what
mean,
she would do.
be willing to step off a cliff, literally, to make sure that the world is saved, and you for what you believe in, what you believe is true, what you believe is the way to save everyone, to give yourself. And that's powerful.
And she'll be coming back to that one day again.
Interesting.
It's not for many books, but
okay,
don't forget that she's willing to sacrifice herself. So that will be important once again.
Don't tell me that. I don't
Not
need
saying
to
that
know.
happens. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I get that though. It's part of her character and part of her drive. She has. I think that at some point one of the characters asks her, "How did you become basically such a good person when you've been through so much? When your father put you through so much pain, how did you come to still have compassion?" And it's a powerful question. But
Yes, it is. I mean, being abused as a child often raises you to be just as awful as your abuser is often what can happen. It can mess up your development, so you kind of don't form fully as a fully moral being, right? Where you have some deficiencies. Yeah.
What I like is that even from, I think it's from book 1, when Sharon realizes that Voni took the whole like burned her father's books and raised his room whenever right after she escaped him, and I think if I had been freed from him, I would have run away. I would not have looked at that place again. And for her to have the presence of mind to say, I'm going to destroy these instructions, basically, of how he did this to me. Nobody else needs to do that. I thought that was powerful for her.
And she also buried him too.
Oh yeah, she did, didn't she?
That was kind of like she just had it. She was like moving past it. Like her walking back right before Tasha Ruin showed up. That's her like leaving all that behind her and going to start like a new life. And then Tasha Ruin showed up.
Yeah, and that kind of tipped those scales.
Yep.
Yeah. I just have to say, I love that. I love the dynamic between Voni still being in that place of, I don't know what this is. I don't know. I think I like this. I don't know if she even admits to herself. I mean, it's obvious to the reader that she has a crush on Sharon, but it's hard to, see her go through that and see her go through not knowing how to tell Yudon, not knowing how to be like, I'm going to hurt you. I know I'm going to hurt you. And then to have, at the time, Lady Petrification inside of her saying, that's not going to turn out well, is just, it makes me like, I'm like, oh, you got to tell him, but I totally understand why you don't.
Yeah, no, she's still very confused. She sees more, it's like she more thinks she just admires Sharon. She doesn't really understand her feelings.
Right.
She's, becoming an adult. She's figuring things out. So,
yeah, I remember when I was younger and I saw, I think it was one of my favorite movies was Twister. And I thought that it was just because of the weather and the twisters, and I thought it was really cool. But I really liked Helen Hunt. Like she just, I really admired her. And later on, it was when I realized, oh, that was like a crush on her. Same thing with like Halle Berry and the Flintstones, and just different people that I saw on TV, and a couple teachers, all that kind of thing. And you look back and you're like, oh,
I mean, Halle Berry was playing Betty, so.
Yeah.
that's just understandable.
Absolutely. Yeah, she's a lot of fun to see on TV. But let me look at what some of the notes that I had, because I just really enjoyed, oh my gosh, I just really enjoyed this book. So okay, so the very first thing that I noticed in your book was the dedication, which made me laugh because it was just dedicating a novel is, you said dedicating a novel is hard. And I think you dedicated it to the readers. Isn't that right?
I dedicated so many books. I don't know which book. I don't know how I dedicated the book to. I think I definitely dedicated a book to my readers.
Yeah, I
and
think
if it's Lady Shadow's Ire, then That's
Yeah, Lady Shadowsire, I think, is first dedicated to
because
just
I'm now hitting the point where I've run out of things to say in my dedications because I already had 18 books. Well, they're not all published, but they're like I've written dedications for them. Plus the ones I collaborated with Michael Evans. So I've written like 20, 25 dedications by the time I got to this
Nice.
series. And now I have more books, although I have a dedication now for book 5. That's not for happy reasons, but
Okay.
uh
Yeah, I mean, I like to be one of those people who reads the front matter of a book. I want to see, I try to read in order. Sometimes I get excited and I skip it, but I try to,
yeah.
see what it does.
I think I dedicated a book to my brother knowing he'd never read it.
Oh yeah, I think I read that dedication. I don't know which book it is, but yeah, I saw something like that. That's funny. Um,
That's a joke from Tad Williams. He did a 4-book series, I think the Otherland series, and he dedicated each book to his dad. He's like, well, no one's yet told him that I've dedicated the book. Let's see, and the next one, like, they're really like, nope, he still doesn't know. The fourth, like, no, no one ever told him. He's never figured out I've dedicated these books to him.
oh no, that's hilarious. So one line that was early on in the book, it was Sharuan, and it says she believed in the apostasy's mission. And there's a line after that I want to talk about. But first of all, remind us about kind of the dynamics of the apostasy and what are they trying to do? What's going on? Dragons, gods, how does that all work together? The structure, I guess.
So on paper, the apostasy follows the great apostate, who was this sort of old guy who's a former priest who got disillusioned in his faith. I think it goes more into that in book 3, but he was like, the gods are full of crap. It's all lies. They're not real. And the dragons weren't our enemies, but are instead trapped in unending pain to fuel the sort of easy wizardry and miracles that exist in the modern day. So for 3,000 years, everyone's thought the dragons are evil, but in reality, they are suffering. So the apostasy's plan is to free the dragons and overthrow the rule of the gods. And they believe the ends justify the means. They're very utilitarian in this aspect. So they don't have a problem with doing a lot of heinous stuff. They don't have a problem overthrowing governments, sacrificing their own children. Like, as we've seen, Voni was sacrificed by her own father, who's a member of the apostasy.
Right.
We meet Lady Shadow, who is another one of these. So she's like a successful sacrifice because she actually is the dragon inside the soul of her vessel, and that was done by her parents. And there's we'll meet others throughout the course. We'll meet all 6 of them
Those are
over the course of the series.
Dedicated and scary parents.
So the apostasy is all about, we're going to question things. We're not going to be following faith. We doubt everything. That's what they are on paper.
Right.
But then you see how their members act, and it's really just a cult of personality around the great apostate that they think they're liberty because they're not. They're like we're atheists. We don't follow the gods, but you're still following an ideology.
Right.
Just as blindly.
Yeah.
Just as blindly as the people you make fun of. Right. It's so I just like that. I love hypocrisy. It amuses me. And so it's a very, so they're because all humans are hypocrites.
Absolutely.
And the ones who think you're not, you're the funniest of them all. Because
I get that.
Yeah, that's the apostasy. So they're gonna overthrow it. They know it's gonna cause chaos. They know they have to cause pain. They have agents all over the world doing shadowy things that you'll really only get a taste of from time to time. But they're doing all sorts of stuff all over the world.
And I remember I liked Lady Petrification, who I want to call Lady Eathjow because
that's her actual name. Lady Petrification is the slur. That's like what so in the Dragon Wars 3,000 years ago, like the people on the god side, they call the dragons by various epitaphs to sort of dehumanize them. So Lady Petrification is kind of what she got known as. But
Right.
Lady is Zhao, or is her real name. But,
Right. And I liked her, so I wanted to call her by her real name. But Lady Shadow will be Lady Shadow. I do not like Lady Shadow. She scares me. She is just mean. I don't like her. But it was
she's a
funny because,
very different dragon.
yeah, I was drawn to more the dragons than the gods, ideologies. I liked the dragons. I felt like they were the good ones. But then at the same time, I didn't really, I don't want to be one of those who just believes based on what I'm hearing either. Even though it's a story, it's still like I'm just listening to these ideologies and following along, but so I'm listening to what the apostasy is saying. I'm listening to what Voni and Yudon are saying about what they believe. And, it's just so interesting to be on the outside of that and yet be drawn in. And so I was drawn in mostly by Lady Eve Zhao's personality. I just, of course, when she basically outed Voni to herself, she didn't realize what she was talking about. That was funny. But also just really being sincere. She's sincere. She's open and all those things that, she's honest with her. She's like, I want to take over your body. That's my role. That's what I need to do. This is how I'm going to be, you don't have to worry about it. You'll be in a corner. You'll be in a dream sleep, all these things. But she's so sincere about it. And I respected that, I respected that. And then, so I was kind of leaning on the dragon side. And then I met Lady Shadow and I was like, okay, maybe not. And so it's funny to me how we think we're believing in something because we believe in that ideology, when a lot of times I think we believe in the person who's telling us about it, or we believe in the good of whoever brings it our direction, and I feel like if Lady Shadow had come to me and said, hey, here's what's really happened in the Dragon Wars, I would have been like, I don't believe you. But it's because of the way she comes across, not because of the actual facts or the actual, history. So very, very interesting to get different perspectives of it.
I like to. You don't want to have any side be homogeneous. So there's going to be various levels of, I guess you could say, good and evil, because they're people. Like I'd say Sasha Rune is she's very much in line with the apostasy, but she's not like a bad person. She just thinks she's doing the right thing.
Right. Because she was almost thrown into a volcano by the people following the gods. So she's like,
by her adopted mother.
Yeah.
As a sacrifice. Yeah.
You're like,
so
I don't like this
she has a good reason why she doesn't like it.
Right. She has a good reason, but at the same time, I like how throughout the book, she starts thinking more and more about what she's doing to Voni. And if she does the same thing, it's like you just see this developing conflict in her of having these flashbacks of when she was almost thrown in the volcano, and then also thinking about Voni and what's going to happen to her, and realizing how her father treated her and all that kind of thing. And it's interesting to see this like slow burn of this conflict just kind of building in her. I'm really interested to see what comes of it, and the line I was going to read that she said was, if nations had to burn, then she would gather the kindling. And that was Shar Ruan's view of this is what's going to happen. And she's so dedicated, and yet I can see how her feelings are going to get in the way. But right now in her mind, she's like, this is how this has to be,
It's a very easy thing to say, I'm gonna, let the world burn or whatever, right? So easy to say, but the reality of it is very different. If you ever read the Dresden Files by Jim Butcher, well, okay. So very, very deep into the series, our main character, he is posed with, I think it's like the sort of the turning point of the entire series where it very much changes its tone. And he's posed with a dilemma where he needs to rescue his his daughter, right? She's going to be sacrificed. She's like a kid, 6 years old or something like that. We didn't even know about her until the start of this book because her mother was like, I don't want her getting mixed up in your stuff, so I'm not telling you that you had a kid.
Hmm.
But it didn't work out because he got mixed up in it. They
Oh,
found, anyways.
still did.
So he was like, he crossed lines that he never would have crossed before. And someone said that, like, how far are you gonna go? It's like, I'm gonna watch the world burn. I'm gonna eat roast marshmallows with my daughter. And he said that. And then in the next book, an angel says to him, like, you said this, you would let the world burn. But did you think letting the world burn meant letting this person you care about suffer so much because of what you asked her to do?
Oh,
To
wow.
do it. And the next book is dealing with the consequences of what his decision to let the world burn did to someone he cared about a lot. And he was faced with, it's very easy to say the world in abstract, but what if I said it's this person that you know and
Right.
care about, and you're going to let them burn? And you did let them burn, and this is what happened to them.
Mm-hmm.
And that stuck with me for years because I read that book, what, 10 years ago? So,
Wow.
and that stuck with me. And so
It's
I
like,
think Tasha Rune needs to learn. It's very easy to say an abstract, but can she keep that when it when the I don't know. I'm searching for an analogy here and I'm failing. But
keep that
when it
conviction,
happens, yeah, will she still have her convictions? We'll
keep
find
that
out.
conviction when it comes to an
If the
individual.
apostasy's methodology is actually worth it. We'll find out. It'll be something for another book, not this book. That's
Okay. Yeah, well, actually, as you were talking about that, what came to mind was when Voni and Udon are on the boat, and that line, oh my goodness, I'm gonna see if I can find the exact line because I was just amazed at the thought of it. But basically, when Voni says, "What if they were just hungry?" She's talking about, she was on the boat with these sailors and the captain was so nasty. He was just nasty. And, he wanted her to come to bed with him. And if she came to bed with him, then they would be able to eat and they would get whatever they wanted. And, you know, after the fact, after they're, off the boat and they're free from this crew, she looks back and her inner thoughts, she's like, we were so hungry that I almost considered it. And, now I'm thinking on all those women that I thought were just dirty and wrong and everything for going to bed with men that they didn't know for money. And then she's like, but what if they were just hungry? And, that reminds me of what you said about when you look at just the world, it's just the world, it's just everything. You don't have to put a face to it. But when it's one individual person, or when it's something you can relate to, then all of a sudden it's real and it's something that you have to face. It's not something you can just close your eyes and say, I erase all this, you know, it's this, you're holding it in your hand and it's like, okay, what are you gonna do with this thing that's precious to you? Yeah, it's awesome to walk beside a character and discover things that they're discovering. She's like, what if they were just hungry? And I like, I guess it was like I kind of had that concept in my mind, that if someone is a prostitute, you don't know their background story, you don't know why they're doing it, you don't know what's going on in their life. you know in my mind I can say I'm not going to judge a person based on what they do for a living just because it's not something I think I would ever do. you know but to put it in the simple sentence of what if they were just hungry, and to have that come from a character that you've known to be so, sheltered, innocent, not, I mean, not kindly sheltered, but just kept to, one small group of people her whole life, and now she's out in the world and she's realizing these things. And just to be part of that was powerful, because it took such a huge concept and put it in one young, innocent question. What if they were just hungry? So what are your thoughts on that? I just spilled mine, but what are your thoughts on that?
It's like, I'm blanking on the guy's name, but it's this black guy, and he befriended a lot of clans members and just was their friend, and he got a lot of them out of that sort of life because they just got to know him.
Oh,
And
wow.
it's familiarity, right? That's all it, when you're not familiar with something, we have a hard time as humans caring about something that's beyond our arm's reach, right? That's not in our immediate vicinity. It's very easy to trivialize people you're never going to meet. They're on the other side of the world, right? You know, um, you can just lump them and think this about them or that about them, but you don't know them. You only have so much you can care for. We're not really equipped for sort of a global civilization on a
Yeah.
emotional, moral level. We're very much a tribal creatures. We understand tribes. Tribes make sense to us. On a very, deep, deep level in how we function.
Yeah,
We're
it
very
makes a
good
lot of
at the
sense.
tribal level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But not so good at the global level.
Yeah. Like,
We're
we
not
think
good
we
at
can be global, but
mix.
it's, yeah.
Yeah, because if you start to get to know different people and you start to see the similarities are there and the differences aren't that great, and then it breeds understanding, and and experiencing a situation is very much different from just saying like how you'd react in that situation. Like, everyone said, like, if the Nazis took over, I wouldn't be a Nazi. But in reality, 99% of people would be. You
Yeah.
would just go along with it. Because you wouldn't think about it. You would think it's normal. You think it's fine.
Right. If that
You'd,
was just something kind of bred into the
yeah,
society, and
just
the
necessarily bred into the society. Just look at with the Ukraine Russia thing. You have people all over the place saying like, oh, it's okay to start like taking property from Russians, to ban Russians from places, all because you don't like what Putin's doing. That's not the Russian people, right?
oh, right.
But that sentiment's there. I've seen people on Twitter like, so what we did with the Japanese wasn't necessarily maybe that bad back in World War II. Yeah, it's stuff out there, and it's that same sort of
Because it's one big
response.
group. It's not an individual person that
Mm-hmm,
you're looking in the
mm-hmm.
eye.
Yeah, because it's triggered this us versus them part of you, and you're like, well, I'm Ukraine and you're bad, right? That's my tribe now. You've adopted it. And now the other tribe must be bad. And when you dehumanize the other tribe, you do whatever you want to them. And it's very
You
easy for society to do that. It's very easy for you to do
Right.
it. And once you do it, it's like how the military gets soldiers to kill people. It's why you have war propaganda, right? To make the other side evil, because like humans have a hard time killing humans when you know them, right?
When you know them. Right.
When you don't see them as human, it's very easy. Unless you're, like a sociopath or whatever.
Yeah. Right. Right.
But
Yeah, that
actually, like,
makes sense.
and not in like in the heat of the moment, right? Like when your emotions are high, it's a lot easier, right? Because you're getting into like survival stuff. But like cold-blooded killing people, that's very hard to do for humans. We have an
Yeah.
actual aversion for it. Like we have to train and we have to overcome a lot of inset biases. But part of that is othering. When you other somebody, when you've convinced yourself that they're evil or bad, they're not like you. You're a good person. So it's okay to what you do to them because they're a bad person. And it's very easy, like I said, for society to do that. You get bombarded by it through propaganda. It just sort of creeps into your mind slowly, day by day, as you get bombarded by it. And then all sorts of horrible things can happen. And
Absolutely.
no society is immune to it.
Not at all. And that's what's beautiful about writing fiction, is that you can bring those thoughts and those realizations into the characters' lives and help us in the real world to consider it for ourselves. I see that Sharon has this conflict of, I'm following this direction because I'm so determined to, right these wrongs. And then when she encounters someone that she gets a little spark that she's never had before, or hasn't had in a long time, then all of a sudden the enemy has a face.
She's away from her support structure. So she doesn't have like her mentor to talk to like calm her down and convince her. She's not around all her friends. She's off on her own on a solo mission. And now she has to put all her convictions to the test, and she's facing new experiences. She's met Lady Shadow, who is not quite living up to
her expectations.
Joshua Ruin's expectations of what the dragons are going to be like. So
right. She's very... like, who is this woman? Yeah. But I think that
you're terrified of Lady Shadow, but so is Tasha Ruin.
Yeah,
that's what I like about that. Like she's like Tasha Ruin in the first book. She's like this unstoppable force, even into the second book, and then she meets Lady Shadow, and she's like, "Oh my!" Like I'm scared now just being around this woman. Like she's like volatile.
Right. Yeah. I'm supposed to be interviewing Jessica Khoury about her Mistwick School of Music Craft, which is a really fun book with music that turns into magic and things like that. And she had a character in her book that in the first book, she was the cool girl, and she made friends with one of the outsiders, and it was neat. And the main character was the outsider, and she's the one who admired her. After a while, she started getting to know her, and she admired her, and she was strong, and she had great ideas. And then the second book comes along, and the girl who was the strong one had an old friend return basically from the dead. They thought she was dead, and she came back, and all of a sudden she's submissive, and she's like scared and timid. And this other girl is like apparently when she was friends with her before, she was like the dominant person. And all of a sudden the main character is looking at her friend going, what happened to you? Like, I can't even talk to you anymore because this other person is just taken over, and I can see that with Sharon. And you have Voni who's admiring Sharon, and then Sharon is like the strong person until Lady Lady Shadow, I will not call her by her proper name, until she comes around. Then all of a sudden she's shrinking now. But I think Voni, I don't think it's going to bother her. She's just has hearts in her eyes. So I don't give enough credit. I don't give enough credit to Yudon because of my own perspective. When I see a boy who's trying to be a hero and that kind of mindset, I shy away from it. But that's something that I feel like I need to adjust in my viewpoint. I need to try to see from his perspective. So when he was on, in these different scenarios, at first, when he, told the sailors on the ship that they were all, fools and he was going to destroy them, or, whatever he said, I was just like, really, dude? Really? But at the same time, I look at it and he's trying to be a hero. He's trying to be a good person in his own way. So tell me about you, Don. Tell me about what's going on with him right now when he's on the ship trying to get her to the Hordelands.
Much trying to, hide his fear through bravado, because that's how he thinks he needs to act. So he thinks he needs to act a certain way. To be sort of that heroic character, he's heard too many stories. Like he thinks he just needs to be better to earn like Voni's affection, because he did lose to Tasha Ruin at the end of the first book. So there was a bit of a ding to his ego there, and so he's maybe overcompensating in book 2 for that. He's acting like a man, but he hasn't figured out what it is to be a man yet, and that's kind of where he needs to go. and what he has to do. He needs to face some more emotional hardships and to sort of get through them. And so yeah, so he's got a couple more growing moments to sort of like try to become this sort of her hero that he wants to be. And so yeah, he's
Yeah.
on the start of that journey. He's very much in it. He still needs to mature. He's very much immature still in book 2.
I think he's on that journey of wanting to be a hero for somebody. And I think eventually he's gonna have to get to that point of, I want to be strong because I need to be strong, not because I need to be it for someone else. I need to have the
His first
independence. Yeah.
the first thing he needs to do is stop doing it for Bonnie. Right. So once he can get past that, but she does do in book 2 because he still thinks he has a shot with Bonnie and all through book 2. So
Poor baby.
yeah. Um, but yeah, no, he needs to just figure that out. Um, he does have a really good role model in his father. Though he's never met him, he very much wants to be his father. Because he's grown up hearing about his father. And while the version his mother told him wasn't quite accurate, because she was trying to protect Yudon from the truth of like his potential being a sorcerer and that being taboo in his lands. But
Right.
like the gist of the story was what happened. And so there very much is that in them. Like I said, there's also very much he's still very much caught in the sort of boyish fantasies of, fighting monsters and getting the girl and saving the day.
Yeah.
Combined with sort of that recklessness that I think any young man of, in his teens or early 20s can definitely relate to.
Certainly.
I
He's
think
got,
I definitely think he's a character that will respond more to male readers, maybe,
yeah.
because I think male readers can really kind of understand that sort of journey he's on.
Yeah, I could see that being the expectation. You grow up with stories of knights and dragons and the hero and you have to be strong, and then you go to school and you're supposed to learn how to be a leader and all that kind of thing. And I can't imagine the pressure. And as much as I absolutely think that women should have the same rights and all those fun things, uh I also am almost glad that I haven't had that pressure on me. um I'm glad that I had a little bit lower expectations so I could create my own expectations. I could kind of build my own self up to where I wanted to be.
I think if you kind of don't have that pressure as a guy, you kind of just end up playing video games all through your 20s.
Hey, there's nothing
Because
wrong.
like if you don't have a reason to do things, you kind of don't want to do things.
Okay, okay.
I think I saw a study that it's like unmarried women uh were like much more harder workers than unmarried men. But then it flips because once women who marry, they often start having kids, and so that's a huge drain on your time. It can definitely change, your focus as a woman.
Oh,
I mean,
sure.
just the fact the pregnancy itself is a whole ordeal that no guy has to go through,
Right,
and
right, right.
completely sympathetic towards what that can, do to your. But like when men get married, they opposite goes on. They start working more because they feel like the pressure to be
Huh.
that sort of provider
Interesting.
thing at a psychological level, even if it's not necessarily the case, even if they both are working or whatever, like she's not a housewife or anything. It's just sort of a psychological thing. Whereas young men who are single, they don't really have that pressure. Some do. Some are driven towards goals that require them to work hard. But
Sure.
I know a lot of guys that they just, they don't want to do anything.
Well, Udon definitely wants to do. He wants to be somebody. He doesn't know exactly who yet, I don't think. But he thinks he does.
He thinks he does. No, I'll have to discover him. Because Yudon and Boney are both out to discover who they are. And so is Zai, which we haven't talked about yet.
Zai. I love me some Zai. She's fun. First of all, I love the image of, I think it's interesting how the uh what are they called? The noble people of her race, her clan, her tribe, um,
Yeah.
with ebony skin and blonde hair. And I think she has green eyes. Is that right? Yellow or green eyes?
She has green eyes.
Green, yeah.
Rowan has yellow eyes.
Right. And just to see, just to imagine that combination is just beautiful to me. But then at the same time, for the nobles in your world to shave their head and put wigs on that look brown or black, the way we would imagine somebody with ebony skin having now. And there's so much in our world right now that shames people who have that texture of hair. And, it's like, you need to straighten it. You need to, keep it controlled. You need to whatever. And, to put it out there, I love how, just like with the shrubmen, how you flip the idea of women, having to be submissive to the men. It's kind of backwards with the shrubmen. They now have to allow the women to walk them, where they go because of the grafting. To me, it was the same when I realized that the nobles put the wigs on, that as I imagine what they look like, I imagine a natural, Afro hairstyle. And that may not be the exact image, but just to know that they were born blonde, which seems to be society's like epic top of the line, blonde hair is beautiful, blah, blah, blah. And to reverse it and be like, I don't want that fair hair, I want dark hair. I want it to look like this, I love that because it's another like reverse perspective to me. And it was a lot of fun to see. But yeah, just tell me about Zai. Zai makes me happy. Tell me more about her.
Well, Zai is my revelation sorcerer, so she can see the future. She can see. So the way sorcery works is like an inverse power. So like the more you do, the more it costs. And you have a finite amount you can hold at a time, and it takes 24 hours to fully refill yourself. So she can like look very, very far into the future for hardly any time at all, or she can just look like 3 seconds into the future indefinitely, which is what she often does. Just
Yeah.
mainly because she's a very lighthearted, playful character. Because she grew up being able to see the future, so she kind of grew up without fear of anything bad
Yeah.
happening. So she's very much like, she's not afraid because she knows she's not going to get hurt doing any dumb thing she does. Yeah, she's very carefree because of that. She's doesn't take things seriously.
Mm-hmm.
Right, but yeah, that's just she's fun. She's kind of like a character I wrote called Zori, but where Zori is very happy as sort of a mask to hide the horrible depression. Like, so she's like hiding her pain by faking being happy and sort of forcing herself to be cheerful. Zori is just like, that's just her. That's her through and through. She's usually just in a good mood. She's playful. She's funny. She's sees the future. She'll make your brain hurt because she'll cheat on conversations and just like she'll like see a vision of how your conversation will go, and she'll just go like, oh, that's what you're going to tell me, just like blurt it out, and you don't even like, she violates causality, you know.
That's interesting to me. I actually read a book once that talked about like timelines, or what was it? Time doesn't exist in a line. It exists if you think of a ring that has several stones going across. It's like an hour in the future is actually already happening, for time travelers. It's already happening. So if you jump over there and then you jump back, I don't know, I can't even explain it now. I'm trying to, but basically it's not a straight line. It's more like side by side. And so when you jump back and forth, you can, create, tell yourself in the future, like Zai is like, oh, she's talking to her past self, saying, don't go past this tree because there's a bear behind it. She doesn't say that, but basically that. And then in her present mind, she's like, oh, okay, I got to make sure I avoid that tree. But she didn't know that until she said it in the future, and she knew to say it in the future because she saw it in the past. And I was just like, I'm like, you don't.
At that point, and at that point, causality is completely severed.
Yes.
Yeah.
She's a lot of fun. But
yeah, because and she often is like, she thinks of herself as like past I and future's I and present's I. They're like all the same. She's like, sometimes she can't tell really who she is. Is she the me in the past that's experiencing it for the first time? Is she here in the present, remembering the past? Is she in the future? So it's all like
I can see that
kind of
getting really tricky.
topsy turvy.
All
Yeah,
topsy turvy. Yeah.
yeah,
I feel like that's gonna bite her in the butt at some point.
that's the plan.
Yeah, no spoilers, but yeah, I feel like it's going to.
She's I will say writing her is hard because I always have to go like, okay, this is what I want to do. Now, how does Zai's power mess with this? So
Right.
I always have to think of um why is I not just looking into the future? And luckily, you know, there are others with these sort of powers. There's, you can do revelation magic. You can have priests of Odazir do revelation miracles. There's rituals of illumination. So there are ways that she's going to learn that her powers are not infallible. But she doesn't know
Yeah.
that yet. She's very oblivious to that. And the other pitfalls is that, as her father explained it, when she peers into the like far into the future, especially, it's like she's standing on one mountaintop, seeing the next peak. She's not seeing what's down in the valley and all the little treacherous stuff. She doesn't know what's going to happen to her, what's going to happen to others. There could be
And
consequences to it.
I
He's
know
very
she also
fatalistic.
I was gonna say I know she also sees alternate timelines that she can search between all the different things that could happen.
Yeah, because she just has her future self do something different and see how it plays out,
Wow. Wow.
and
I
then
love
don't
it.
do that. Yeah,
Yeah.
she starts to learn. She doesn't. She never really did that before, but she's starting to learn how to really use her powers. Now that she's kind of getting out of the city
And I
and
could
really
see
having
that
to
being,
face challenges, right?
yeah. And I mean for her to the idea that she looked 3 years into the future and saw herself cooking the dinner in the woods and then kissing Udon as he walked by, and to see that play out in real time later. And then for her to say, I remember like she went into the woods and then she got caught up in the net and she was scared to death, but then she met the man who ended up giving her the clothes that she wore going forward. Um, so then she gets to that point, and she's at the campfire that she saw in her dream, and so she knows she needs to tell her past self, hey, um, you know, this is your husband's about to come by, um, but then to herself she thinks, but I'm not going to tell you about the trap because then you won't meet, the guy you need to meet. And I was just like, again, like, wow, that's a lot of fun, to see her say, I'm not going to tell you about that.
Mhm. That was fun to read and seeing you like come up with. Because like, when I came up with the characters of the series, like Zai was one that I don't know where she sparked from, but once I had her, like, oh, I want to have this seer girl, and she'll see the future all the time, and I'm not at all going to regret this decision. Like,
You didn't look into your future very well, did you?
no, because it is a headache sometimes. Just going like, oh, Zai. It can get confusing. Um, but yeah, no, Zai's fun. I really like her. She's kind of my favorite character. So I have a lot of fun writing her. Her and Lumi are,
Yeah.
I think,
Oh yeah, this book, we meet Lumi number 2, right?
yeah, with the meet Lumi number two, and she merges to form bigger Lumi.
Big Lumi. I'm like Wolf Lumi. I have a German Shepherd, and so like I relate now more to Lumi even more because I just think of my dog walking beside me and Lumi doing Lumi, and so yeah, I'm very interested in Lumi's future, and to see knowing that there's more in the world that Lumi could merge with, and I don't know how many there are in the world yet, so no telling how big Lumi could get and what Lumi actually turns into. So this is going to be fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, there's no telling. She might turn into a dolphin
Hmm.
and swim with other dolphins. I'm
That
just
note.
who knows.
Who knows?
And if
Well,
you look on some of the book covers, like you can maybe go like, there's a giant blue bird that Yuden's flying on that looks very much like Lumi.
I
Maybe
don't
she
know.
gets into
Maybe
a big bird. Who knows?
Just another big blue shiny thing that he found.
Yeah.
Well, I am definitely looking forward to more Lumi, more Voni, Sharuan, and Yudon, and Zai, for sure. And I'm sure Zai is looking forward to it as well, quite literally. So.
Well, I mean, her reunion with her meeting of you didn't quite go as you thought because he's hung up on a different girl.
Yeah.
So
And she didn't tell her that
she
either.
didn't
She
see.
didn't tell
Well,
herself
she
that.
didn't know that. She didn't see that far. She only saw to the kiss. She didn't see what happened after.
Right. Yeah. That's so funny. I love to see it's like I love to see her happy and go lucky and excited, and then I'm also I'm worrying for her because I'm like, you're gonna crash at some point. But I love her positive attitude and her just like, it's gonna work out. It's gonna be fine, you know. So I also think it's interesting how now I've peeked a little into book 3, but you know, just to know the dynamic of someone like Voni who doesn't have revelation sorcery, and then Zai who does, and knowing, you know, that Voni has had to worry her whole life and Zai has not, it comes to a very interesting encounter. So I'm going to leave it at that. But yeah, I like that. I really enjoyed that encounter and had never thought of it that way. So I'm going to leave that little tidbit out there for readers who are ready for book 3, which comes out tomorrow. And it is called
Guilt of Sacrifice. The Guilt of Sacrifice, I believe. Yep.
Yes, Guilt of Sacrifice.
Guilt of Sacrifice.
I wonder what that could mean. So many things. So
yeah, sacrifice is very much the theme of the series. I didn't quite expect it. Like, I actually didn't. I made the connection about Tasha Rowan being sacrificed, and then her hunting down someone to be sacrificed. It wasn't something I planned. It was something
really,
I discovered in writing. Yeah, I gave her that. Well, I wanted to give her a backstory. Like, why does she hate the gods? Well, this is why. And that seems like a good reason why she hates the gods. She was raised in a temple. She thought like she was special, and she was special because they were going to sacrifice her to a volcano to stop it from erupting.
right. Yeah, that's no.
Yeah. And
I'm
so
interested
it,
to see more.
but then I wrote it and I made this connection. That's how I write. Like I find connections I never planned on, but they're there. Maybe my subconscious list them in, or maybe I'm just good at spotting connections
I
and
love
making
that.
use of them. Yeah.
It's almost like jumping and the net forms as you're falling.
Yeah. So that's sometimes writing. Feel like I hope this works out, but I just got to kind of write into it and see what happens.
Like, here we go. Yeah, I love it. Well, we are coming to the end of the hour, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining me again on Author Talk with SJC. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing what other people think about book 2 and how this is going to go with the book launch tomorrow. So I'm very excited.
Yeah, me too.
Awesome. All right. Well, James, I hope you have a fabulous evening and look forward to talking to you again when the next launch comes out in 3 more weeks.
Sounds good.
All right. Sounds good. Talk to you later.